Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Gary, and I am the Secretary of POLIS, the platform for urbanism and landscape architecture at the Faculty of Architecture in TU Delft. And on behalf of the entire association, I'd like to welcome you all to this very first episode of this presentation series, where you get to listen to presentations and stories and also interact with the authors of some of the best and hand-picked graduation thesis projects of the past from the urbanism and landscape architecture track at TU Delft. So let me welcome you all to this first edition. And I would also like to introduce you to the very first speaker, Catalina Rey Hernandez. She is an architect turned landscape designer from Chile. She's currently working as a landscape designer at Bureau Sand & Co. in The Hague, Netherlands. She is someone who is experienced in developing designs at different scales. She likes understanding the challenges of urban pressure, climate change, and landscape identity. She's also someone who is driven by the further development of innovative designs from a landscape and an urban perspective. She is a graduate from TU Delft, and she graduated from the landscape architecture track in 2019. And she already gave her thesis presentation to all of us when we joined here, but most of us forgot, or we were not too connected to this landscape or urbanism stream back then. So without further ado, Catalina, the floor is yours. Good luck.
Okay. Well, thank you first of all for the invitation. I think, as I mentioned before with the guys, that I think it's really nice that you create this kind of events or meetings with the alumni, because I think it's, yeah, we're still here and we have some experience that we can share, and also you can share a lot. So I think it is really nice. So I will share my screen. Yes. Yeah, do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, yeah. Well, I couldn't prepare it that much because it was a little bit of short notice. So it is more a technical or about the thesis, but I will try to explain also a bit of the process and some tips, some anecdotes to make it more relaxed and more fun also for you. So, well, I did my thesis about research about the natural disasters in my hometown in Concepción, Chile. So a bit of context, it is in Latin America, in this long country, more or less in the middle. It's a coastal area with two main rivers. So this is more or less the area. And how I decided to work with it, because yeah, of course, we have these labs and they propose some topics, and I wasn't really sure about what to do. Like I can imagine you all are a bit struggling with all this information that is coming, that you need to start thinking. So what it happened is that after the first year, I came back to my country, and the plane went exactly here. This is the airport. So I passed over these wetlands, and I realized that it was a really interesting place where we could play, where I could propose something, and I live here. So it's a place really close by that I know really well. So I already had an understanding of the problems. Then this fascination, or this first insight, was also from this history of natural disaster that hit the whole country, and yeah, especially my city. So just before coming here, the summer before starting the master, there was a huge amount of fires around all the forestry areas of the city. And that was really dangerous. We get really scared. And it made me think, like, how from my field I can help for this. And yeah, I was an architect, and I say, yeah, but this is related to nature. So then I started thinking about landscape. It was a decision to come here, so it makes sense to start with something related. So then I started checking about this. And yeah, in 2010, we have a huge earthquake that destroyed a big area of the city. And really early when I was in high school, there were some floodings also because of man-made works around the rivers. So that made me wondering, like in this area that we have natural disasters since the beginning of the city, and not only in my city, but in the whole country because of the geomorphology of the area, why we see this as threats when it's periodically happening. So my motivation was to understand these kind of events as something normal, something that happens to us, and we don't need to fight it, but we need to understand and adapt. So more into it, like I did a lot of research of the site. And in addition to all this natural disaster, we have a problem with urbanization, like most of the cities. So the city expands towards the periphery, but not in relation with the landscape, as you can see in this picture. I mean, it's just a square, and all the city is planned with this chess square. So it doesn't relate. And if you see in the plan, these two rivers are the, let's say, the main hydrology system. And they determine that all this area, where is the city, were formerly wetlands, that now the city is upon them. And of course, it's not safe for the inhabitants, not for the landscape, not for anyone. So yeah, well, this is really technical about this research objective that you need to think about it also in your thesis. That is what you want to do with this topic or whatever you want to do. So in this case, I wanted not only to work with this city, but I wanted to create a system or a series of principles that can help as guidelines to create more resilient and adaptive designs for cities from the perspective of landscape and landscape urbanism. So yeah, big part of the thesis, every thesis, and that you will need to do is a literature review. And I would like to give you a big tip that helped me a lot during this. Is yeah, the internet is a good source of papers and everything, but go back to your notes, go back to this first year, to this first and second quarter, and check the lectures that the professor gave you. Because sometimes you get lost, like, where do I start, which theory I choose? And they show us those theories because they know. So if you, for me, I have a really big notebook where I write down all the lectures. And then I just was going through and I said, oh, this relates to my place. This relates to my problem. So I already had a bibliography in my notes, in my previous notes. So that saved you a lot of time and give you insight, like, yeah, I learned this. I know about this, so I can apply it. So I think that is really important if you want to save stress and time. So in this case, one of the main theories that I took is one from a guy, Australian guy called Rob Rogema, that was also because my mentor mentioned, like, you know, he's working with something similar, you should contact him. And I contact, and he gave me the information. And this theory was about to create this kind of adaptive system in cities through urban or natural voids. So I wanted to create this network of natural voids mainly, and I completed with urban voids, to create a space and redundancy in the city in case of this emergency. So from here, I create 4 design strategies that were like my guidelines before the design. So to know what to do when you start designing. So these are my 4 strategies. That it was to base the design in the nature of the city, then identify these voids and connect them according to the geomorphology or the line of landscape. And then complement these connections through a green and blue infrastructure. And finally, reformulate, or let's say like give another meaning to this design, saying that the city can provide for nature instead of nature can be used for cities. It's not moving now. Yeah, so then I did a really lot of maps, which I will not show, but this is more or less the conclusion map, where I map all the different entities of the landscape, such as the wetland, the floodplains, the wooded areas, the city, the main infrastructure. So all the things that were important for my objective. And here I identify some voids that are this, in this case, I defined it to two, the natural voids and the urban voids. So the natural one, in this case, are mainly the wetlands and the rivers. Because they are, currently they are not used. They are areas, let's say, not abandoned, but more or less they look like this. You see like natural area that they are beautiful and should be protected, but it's not the case. And those are the areas where the city is planning to build. So they're like, let's say, fragile voids, natural voids. And then the second category was these urban voids, because as I mentioned, the city was hit by a lot of earthquakes. So that creates a lot of abandoned buildings or abandoned structures that, for example, in this case, this wasn't an earthquake, it wasn't a fire. It was a fire. But the thing is, the structures remain there. And because economical reasons, they cannot demolish them. So they just stand there. So why don't we use them in order to create more resilient structures? So, yeah, I missed one. No, yeah. So this was the other step that I was telling to complete this, this previous analysis of the voids through connections with a green and blue structure. So in this case, for example, this is also a good tip. I personally like to sketch a lot, first to go to the computer or to CAD. So in this case, I just printed really big the base plan and I started to sketch. And I painted what I say, like, yeah, I want to protect this area for the floodplain. This is the airport, so we need to have more space, or I can create farmlands in the floodplain of the river, so you protect it with functions and city cannot grow there. Same here. So going through the map, going with a pencil was really helpful for my process. And then when I go to the mentors, I say, yeah, this is my sketch. And I'm planning to go with it in the computer next week. And they told me, why? If you already have this plan, you don't need to make it in the computer because it already looks good. So if you feel more comfortable working with by hand, do it, and then just scan. Because the important, I think, is not only the aesthetics of the plan, but also the content. That's the more important thing, and to express it well. So I think that was a good thing for the time management. So yeah, here I defined some typologies for each one of these areas. Was really general, let's say, because it's a big area. This is one city, this is another, and this is another. So it was a conglomeration of different cities, kind of a metropolitan area. So I did more typologies as a general, let's say, principle to explain what I was aiming to do. So then I also by hand, I defined these 4 typologies according to the landscape of the place. So for example, these were the big areas of the wetlands that I proposed to make it more accessible for people. Then you have the heavily wooded areas that are these dark contour lines. That is all the hills, look kind of island hills that remained as a forestry mainly, and they can be really useful for vertical evacuation. in case of a earthquake. So in this case, I wanted to keep them without urbanization, so as a safe place to escape. Then this third typology is very important because it's all these connections. So this was, let's say, a hard part of the design that identified the voids, but I needed to connect them. And I need to take away the water from the higher part to the down part by gravity. So I needed to find the right lines where I could incorporate these, let's say, riverways or canalways to take the water from the vulnerable areas to be flooded towards the wetland as a water reserve. And then these two last typologies were more specific, like parks or green areas, recreational areas, more specific, like pockets for different neighborhoods. That are the case of these blue dots, that are some lakes that remain from the former wetlands. So all these typologies are also not my invention. I apply them here, but I took them for designing with nature from Ian McGarg, a really old book that it is in the library if you want it. But the thing is that you also need to understand, I think, when you do the thesis, is you are not going to create something new, or you are not going to invent the wheel, you know? You need to apply what is there, like take different theses, different theories, bring them together, make correlations to create new conclusions. So that's about the thesis. And you shouldn't get like overwhelmed, like I need to create an amazing design or a super innovative thing, because it is more about the process of connecting different things that are already there to create new conclusions or new knowledge, applying them in certain place or certain problems that you want to explore. So then, as I said, this super big area, I just use 3 sites to test. Now I will explain only one because otherwise I will be all day talking. But it was like, what are the most representative areas of my place? So yeah, the wetland, this one. Then this area that was related to this big river. Yeah, this is a river of 2 kilometers wide. That is an important feature. But this little river over here that looks so tiny compared to this one is the dangerous one because it's next to the city and it's really compressed. So it floats a lot. So the third side was how this river relates to the city. And the last one, let's say like a bonus track, was this urban void explorations, that it was more like an exploration, not really a defined design. So these are a little more, some of the impressions that I made to illustrate these designs or what I wanted to do there. And this is what I came up with each one of these areas, that I created these kind of sections, perspective sections, to show they are not also, that's something important, they are not that accurate. This place is not exactly like that. But the idea is to show the typology of the place, and more important, how it can work in 4 main pillars that I defined, that it was the social and cultural value, the risk management value, ecological and economical value. Because yes, all these landscape things, and I think this we can apply with any area, we all want to protect them and not touch them, and that they remain ecologically virgin, and I don't know, it's just good for nature. But we also need to live with them. We need to use them in a sustainable way. So they can give us economical growth. So we give them like importance for the city. And then we can avoid other problems like urbanization in these areas. So that's, for me, was important to create kind of a seasonal farming over there, and taking some specific of the place, like for example, in these wetlands, they harvest ground shrimps. That is also something seasonal, but it's important for the local economy, let's say. So yeah, it was the idea to show a little bit of how each one of these typologies could work. And as I mentioned before, this was the one that I will explain a little bit more in detail. So as you can see, the design is really subtle. You know, it's more about understanding the place and suggesting that we can make a series of paths or more accessibility for people to go to these places that right now are really away from the city and you don't have really connections. So that gives a network for recreational, but also it protects the ecological value, and it creates more economical value for these areas. And what was important also for me, because of the topic, was how this can adapt. Why do we need to protect this? Why do we need to keep this as it is and not allow the urbanization here? Mainly because in this case, the wetlands are water and fluid storage. So when the waters come in from the base, these wetlands kind of storage the water and protect the city. Also create runoff regulation, and they are sources of quality water supply in future scenarios where we know water will be a problem. So it was mainly pointing out what are the benefits of each one of these places. So then I explore a bit with these impressions. That is also a good tip. Like sometimes you don't have the design completely in mind, but creating this kind of collages, a bit of your imagination, it helps you to research through design. So you research how this can work. In this case, I wanted to apply a bit of some vertical structures that can also allow to go up in case of a earthquake. Maybe it will not work, but I think it was a nice utopia to explore. So I also used this system of showing the same image with the normal scenario, let's say, when you can go there for recreational or educational purpose. And then what happened if this floods? These paths were designed with certain height that you can still be safe. Like in the case of this, the right image, it was like this is a fluvial winter flooding, but then if you have a tsunami, you can be here and you will be safe, let's say. So it was a kind of an exploration. And then this was the last exploration, that was this idea of the urban voids. So I said, okay, this structure is still really strong. It will not fall down. But yes, expensive to use it or to construct something there. We need more investment. But what if we keep it as a void? We keep it as something empty, where in normal times you can have this kind of cinema, or maybe just a place where skaters gather, or something that people can use in the daily time that doesn't have a specific function. So it remains as a void. And then if you have a earthquake or flooding and you have people that need shelter, you can use it as a refuge. So it's the idea of keeping places empty that you can give different function during the process of the city, because the city is always changing. We are always changing. So the structures need to provide space for changing. And one of the important things I think about the thesis is, yeah, we do our research, we present a design, but then we need to conclude. We need to say what I can learn from this. So in this case, my conclusion was based in how this system would work through time, how it will help. So in this case, we have this current situation, and yeah, I also give some times. So in between 0 to 2 years, you gather organizations and you start valuing these places, giving information to people. And then in this same system, you start designing this, this idea of the green structure. And then from 2 to 10 years, because it takes time, you can develop this kind of infrastructure in phases, obviously, especially the voids, not the construction, but the developing of the voids. And then you make the connections that are very important in all of these places. And this is, let's say, until here is the design process. But then between 1 to 2 months, 1 to 2 days, you have a disaster. And in this case, I test it with a flooding. It can be a tsunami or also rain, winter flooding. So the idea is, because of the extension of the wetland and the protection of them, they absorb the shock. Of course, it will be some problems. So then, between 1 to 4 years, you learn, you adapt, you say, what were the flaws for the design? What are the strong? So then you can identify this, let's say, how do you say it? Like at this point, and then you can readapt the design continuously. And the important thing for me about this is that here it's applied to this place, but if you see through it, it's really general. It's a general principles or guidelines to design in these kind of coastal areas, or even just with water. So what I propose is to create this kind of system that in this case is test in the city, to be applied in other problems, in other cities that can be struggling with the same challenges. So this was more or less my thesis. And yeah, I wanted to point out a little bit of these tips also. I think the most important thing, is the teacher choice. And you know that most of the people, also me, you have your first choice, like a really good teacher, someone you admire, someone you know that you will have a good project. That's not a good decision. Choose someone or ask for someone that you get along. Someone that is, you know, you can work with him, you know, or her. Like during the, I don't know, the other quarters, you get I don't know, a good feeling. You know, like my first idea, Fritz, Nico, I don't know, you know, like someone that is positive and it had good energy. Because the thesis is yours, it's not from your teachers. You will create the content. And in the discussions, you will need someone that will support you, that will tell you you are doing well, or you need to change this. But that also you have the trust and the confidence to create discussion about it. Now the thesis is not about listening to someone that teach you. It's you proposing something and to allow the discussion about some topics. So in this case, natural disasters. I propose the topic and we discuss with my mentors hours, like, what do you think about it? Do you know someone that wrote about it? You know, that's really important. Then allow discussion with your classmates. I know it's difficult with this virtual thing. You cannot go like in the next table to say, hey, can you help me? But try to create like these meetings, do these meetings with between you and say, you know, I don't know what to do here. And then your classmate will help you because they don't know everything that you don't know about your thesis. So they have a fresh idea that can help. You say, but look, you didn't see this there. You can improve with this. And this applies the same with asking help for other teachers that are not your mentors, that don't know anything about your project, that you can explain your topic in 10 minutes and then say, I have this problem. And they will give you a lot of advice and tips about things that you didn't think before, because they have like new eyes in the design. And by own experience, they are really willing to help any teacher of the faculty. You just send an email, can you help me? Yes, of course, let's set a time. and they will do it. It's not a problem for them. And also, one thing that is important, because I saw it a lot in my classmates also, to be afraid of, because now you manage your time and you ask for meetings. Your teacher will not say, let's meet every week. No, well, some of them, yes, but usually no. So you ask for the meetings, and a lot of people don't want the meetings because they don't have enough material. It doesn't matter. If you have a sketch, something really little, a scheme, I don't know, just how do you call it? Like a summary of a text, whatever, ask, because otherwise you will block. And you need those meetings, like to say, it can be a meeting of 10 minutes. It doesn't need to be 1 hour of review. So you say, you know, I have a problem with this. Can you help me or whatever? And they will never judge you because you don't have enough work. So I think that's really important. Ask for help, be humble, and say, I cannot do this, I need help. And they will do. I mean, we are doing that. I don't know if you will do it in groups, but usually it's individual thesis. And that doesn't happen then in work. We all work in teams. So you are always discussing, and you cannot know everything. I mean, that's why we work in teams, because we grow together. So I think that, yeah, that's more or less my tips. I hope it helps, but yeah, allow discussion. And not only ask for help, but give help. That's also super good, to see other projects, to help with other projects, because it also develops your capacities. So I think it's just about communication, and try not to work. Of course, some people feel more comfortable working alone, but I think it's better to communicate, to share, and also make your timetable, go on Fridays for a beer. Don't be all day focusing on the thesis, really. I think that's not healthy. So yeah, I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Catalina. This is exactly what we wanted from this session. It was informal, but you gave us the entire idea of how to do a thesis in just half an hour, and you made it sound so simple. But we know it's not. But there's one thing that you addressed about this project not being complete or not being perfectly this utopian world of landscape and nature. It's something that most students always think when it comes to their thesis. They're like, I need to produce this utopian perfect world of systems or ecosystems or of a project, and then they always get stuck in that box. You know, they don't talk to people, they just go in that one single line. But yeah, also about this teamwork process that you were talking about, it's always nice to talk to people, get fresh ideas, and go on with also have a social life in between your academics, because at the end of your thesis, you're not done with your career. You just have to go on with your career, and you can't live your whole life just thinking about work and your field of study. So thank you so much. I'm pretty sure a lot of people will have some things to ask you, because you put it in a nice way. So questions, guys.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, because one thing that I really enjoyed during the process, that it didn't, I put it in a report, but it wasn't important for the design, that I wanted to create, I create this kind of utopias. You know, that this is completely impossible, but I say, okay, what happens if the city, the center of the city, goes with water until 10 meters or more? What if we do a structure over the city and you run away towards there? It's impossible, and I will not use it in my thesis, but it was a really nice experiment to do. Like, what are the possibilities of going out of our box? So I think I did one also. Let's see, it's this one, I think. Yeah, this is one. If I'm, like the same. If everything is underwater, maybe we have a structure of a windmill, so the energy is still happening and the city keep functioning. or these kind of really crazy things that, yeah, this will never happen. You will not have these kind of things in the middle of the city. But yeah, I think it's you need to find the ways to enjoy, to do what you want. So I think it was nice. Yeah, I want to.
And also this thing that you mentioned about the products that we make, after you did the sketch on your paper, but you just wanted to transfer it to a CAD drawing, and then Nico said, let's not do it. That's also another thing that students spend a lot of time in. They try to make their sheets look really pretty, but the content might not be as good. Yeah, so it's more about the content and what you're really aiming to achieve than making things look prettier. Maybe you can do it for your final presentation, but not.
Exactly. No, and I think it's important that we need to be honest with ourselves and really say like, yeah, I'm really good in CAD, so then I do everything in CAD. Okay, it's perfect. I'm really bad in CAD. I prefer to do hand drawing. Then you do hand drawing. I think it is, yeah, the manage of the time and thinking efficiently, the best way to show what you want to show or to create something. So yeah, everyone has different process. So please don't compare yourself like, oh my God, my classmate has so beautiful maps. You have beautiful impression. You have a beautiful analysis. It really doesn't matter.
Okay, time for questions. Anyone? Ganesh?
Hi, Catalina. Yeah, thanks for this very candid kind of presentation where you sort of help us give a perspective towards these things that are not really discussed about. I have a few curiosities to sort of know your process.
I cannot hear you.
I read the project. Maybe I'll read more about it in the.
It is a bit like.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but you're getting stuck.
Yeah.
Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, the question is like, what was your process like when you sort of face a creative block, or like you sort of like hit a wall and then you're struggling with yourself and those kind of situations when you're trying to get out of that rut, probably something like that. How do you work with that?
With the block, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I have learned now that I'm working mainly that I asked like my neighbor in the office, like, what do you think about it? Like, can you help me? I really don't know what to do. But yeah, what I usually do, or I used to do, it's a bad tip because we are in lockdown. But I love going out a lot to museums because the thesis is always in your back. I'm sorry, but it will be. Next year, you will be always thinking about it. So if you go out and you start seeing things with another view, with another eye, so you go an exhibition about art, just for fun, do it for fun. And you go and there, suddenly you see a picture, a painting that inspire you. So try, if you have a blog, don't focus like, I need to work, and staring at the paper, staring at the map, staring at the things. That's the worst. Go out, clear your head, try to do other things, and you will get more inspiration. So one thing is that, like take a step back, to see if you can find something in other things, I don't know. And ask for help, as I say, like to people that don't know anything. Like even sometimes it was my hometown. So I took with my friends from high school. They are lawyers. They don't know anything about landscape. And I told them like, yeah, I have in this. And but I lived there for a long time. And this is a problem that I noticed. Or someone else say like, yeah, I think this could be different. So I think it's asking for help, not only for people from our field, but for people, for example, that live in the place or that are your friends. Because if you discuss like really informally, not like, make a presentation and say, these are my problems. No, really informal, like over a beer, I would say. Like, yeah, I have these and these problems. I don't know how to solve. You can get the help. So I think it's getting different opinions, not focusing in the problem, like I need to solve it because it will not happen, and take it easy. Take it easy. Like it's really like we all get blocks. It's normal. So don't get stressed over it. I mean, if you have a block for 1 month and you don't work in 1 month, okay, worry. But I don't think that will happen, you know.
Anybody else? Do you have more questions?
Yeah, I have another question, but maybe you can take some time to think about it as well. I was wondering if after a year after graduation, and also like almost 2 years since started, in hindsight, do you listen, think maybe this could have been otherwise been even more better, like this was even more? Is there a moment that you sort of think about it that way?
Or you get a lot of frozen parts.
I'll type it in. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing a question here. How long it takes for selecting the issue when it is decided? It's possible. Yeah. For me, it was really easy because I thought about it in the summer holidays. But if you, at least my friend that have troubles like choosing a topic, they went with the lab, with the topic of the lab. So that was, if you are not sure, just choose a lab that suits you, that you think is interesting. That's important, like finding something interesting. So I would say after P1, you can still change. You know, like in my case, for example, I knew I wanted to work with the city, especially this big wetland in the north. And actually, I just wanted to work with that. But then during the analysis, the discussions, I realized that I needed to take over the full area. So it is a process. And it is possible to switch the topic, I think before P1, I would say, even after P1, but no more than that, because then it is a lot, you lose time. And the way to decide it, I think, is about like reading. Start with your notes, as I say, because I mean, the landscape topics, there are not that much also. I mean, there are, but they are all explored also. So I think it is, you should start with identifying a problem. That's the easiest, to solve a problem. So then you see how this landscape can, or urbanism, I don't know, can solve this specific problem. So yeah, in my case, I cannot help you that much because I didn't have that problem, but some of my friends had problem finding the topic. So then I think you can, if you get too blocked with that, just ask your teachers like what they recommend you in which direction you can go. So that's yeah, and if you have, because maybe you don't have clear your topic, but you have clear your place. So through analysis, you will get the topic. So I think that, yeah, don't worry about it.
Something relating to the analysis and research part. How exactly or where exactly do you limit your research to? Because knowledge is like you have a notion of that, but you don't really have enough time to go all through it, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's yeah, you need to be smart looking for sources, like with, let's say, with key words. So for example, yeah, in any landscape project, you have like kind of 2 areas. That one is the site analysis and then the problem analysis. So for the site, yeah, it's easy to look for it, but then look for the specific things. Like for example, in my case, about the geography or the rivers. So I look, but then it's also like a scan through the top, through the text. Because for site, I would say you should focus more in the map analysis, like graphic analysis. And then for the topic, same, just what I used to do was find a good paper, for example, in resilience or architecture in resilience. So then you get some theories about these topics, summarized quickly, and then you already have some first words, and then you just scan it, let's say. But I would say 1 to 2 months, no more that, spending that. If you already have, I don't know, 10 papers, 20 papers that you review, doesn't matter, cut it. At some point you need to cut it, you know, because you always get more and more and more and more and more information. So you get overwhelmed, and then you don't know what to do. So yeah, at some point you really need to cut it. It doesn't matter if you don't have the information, then you can ask someone, like where I can find this. So that is also good. Like the teachers have years of theoretical research. So they know exactly which book, which paper can help you. And a good source are our own teachers. Like, I don't know, Stefan, Saskia, they have published a lot of things, Inge, about water. So look into their papers also, because I mean, they are our teachers, they will judge us, but they know, and I think it's also because if you read a paper, for example, from Saskia that is useful for you, or any other teacher, sorry, I'm saying only landscape because I don't know from urbanism, then you can ask her, like, what do you mean about that? Do you have more reference about this specific topic that you research? So they also are interested on those topics, so they can help you really well. So yeah, I think it's about that, like being smart in who you ask also.
We have one more question from the same question that Ganesh was asking. Mm-hmm. Is there something that you would have done differently on in your course of thesis, now that you think about it?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, in the design or in the product itself, it's never finished. You know, like any design, it will never finish in any field. So yeah, of course I can continue, but you get sick and no more. But what I would make differently, maybe I would have give more time to the presentation, to the final, the P5. Because in my case, like I had really good P1, P2, P3, P4, but then the last one, I ran a little bit out of time because I was a little bit too ambitious. Like I wanted to do a model and this and that and blah. And then, yeah, the problem, I mean, I was done to do it, but you don't have much time to set the how do you call it? The room. Well, I don't know if you will have a room or it will be like this, but so I have like 10 minutes to set up a projector because I projected something in a model. So it was a bit too much, you know? So I think it's, keep it simple. I would say that, to keep it a little bit more simple. Like, don't overwhelm yourself because, yeah, I also have some really stressful periods. So I would say to relax a bit more, to enjoy for sure. And yeah, I think I would keep it a bit more simple at the end, the presentation, yeah.
All right.
I would change that, yes.
Do you have more questions? Anyone from landscape or urbanism? Or I think we also have people from outside and other countries tuning in. Anybody? Joanna? Jan? Gota? Susie?
It was super clear and beautiful.
Thank you for your presentation. It was really lovely.
Okay, I think we're done. I hope you're done. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much for this because it was something refreshing because it was a different kind of perspective into thesis. Because every time you look at a thesis project, it's all the technical aspects and all the sheets, but you don't really know what the author went through and what the experience was. So this was really nice because we are all going to do this in a few weeks. Such a good motivational presentation from you. Thank you so much, and hope you have a nice time in your new office and for your future as well. And hope to see you back for such presentations again.
For sure. But by the way, I just remember one more thing. If you are able to join to the P5 of the student that do it now, please do it.
Yeah.
Maybe the topic is not important, but the teachers always ask the same questions.
Okay.
So then you have a list of which kind of questions can they ask you, so you can prepare a bit. So it's good. It's good to see how it works and everything. So last tip.
Yeah.
And please feel free to text me, to send me an email if you have questions. I don't have any problem to contact. So please do it. I'm more than happy to help.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. I think we can close this now. Thank you and good night, everyone, for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for inviting me.